We're now joined by Dan Bucatinsky, who might just be America's favourite on-screen gay husband. He's best known for the Emmy-winning turn as James Novak on Scandal, but Dan has been lighting up our screen for years. He's appeared on nearly every iconic TV show you have ever seen. He's in Hacks, he was on Curb Your Enthusiasm, Weeds, Friends, Will and Grace, Frasier, Grey's Anatomy, just to name a few. And you can now see him in the new smash Our Little Secret, alongside Lindsay Lohan and Kristin Chenoweth, which swept the holiday season on Netflix. In fact, last week, it was globally the #1 film being watched. And though initially hesitant about the role, Dan took it on and in true form made himself unforgettable. Dan, welcome.
Have you ever met Sam before?
No, I'm a huge fan, so I'm kind of freaking out right now.
Thank you.
I'm so happy to meet you.
Oh, no, likewise. I'm so happy to meet you too. Oh my God, I'm so excited.
You just wrote a fantastic piece for the Daily Beast on how you went back and forth on this role and said yes, which you weren't expecting to. Please explain for those who haven't read the piece.
Explain yourself,
I know.
Dan.
How dare I? Just like I went back and forth, I was gonna say no to ever appearing on this podcast, but then I had to. No. Of
Just
course
say
not.
yes.
But no, it was after the strike, and we had all been beaten down by picketing on the Writers Guild side and on the actors side, and we just wanted to get back to work. Nobody quite understood where the business was going to go, and opportunities were very, very slim. And speaking of which, I was sent this script to play Kristin Chenoweth's husband, and I was so excited to flip through the pages and find out all the ways in which we would be, in my mind, darting off to Rome and having a second honeymoon and having all these fabulous scenes together. As it turns out, when you're in a romantic comedy that stars Lindsay Lohan, it's not about you. So I flipped through the script and I realized that for the most part, my character appears in the background of many, many scenes and didn't have a lot to say. And, I kept thinking in the back of my mind that old adage, there's no such thing as small parts, just small actors. I admitted to myself that I was a small actor and that this, in fact, was a very small part. And I thought, what am I going to do? I mean, I can't go spend a month in Atlanta just sort of in the background, can I? I didn't have the ego strength for it. And so I talked about it with my reps and they're like, well, do you want to get back to work or do you want to maybe hold out for something better? And many of them were saying, yeah, you should definitely pass. This is too small a part for you and you shouldn't do it. And it just fed my negative internal critic, like, what will people think, how far he's come, how far he's fallen, all these just crazy, grandiose ideas, like anybody's thinking of me anyway. They're not. And I remembered something that was in my old boss, Shonda Rhimes' book, which was, all about saying yes. And it made me realize that, like, this opportunity to spend 3.5 weeks just working, just being with other actors, just being on the set will have some kind of additive, sort of restorative powers to me. I certainly hoped. And I just said yes. I'm going to go. I'm going to make the most of it. And as most people said to me, like, you're going to wind up making it better than it is anyway. You're just going to feel it. And the minute I got to Atlanta and I met Kristin and we started working together, we started to fill it. We just filled the empty spaces and the relationship. And it became one of the most satisfying experiences for me, mainly because of what I said, that feeling of just being in it, not the end result, not the like, oh, did you see Dan in that movie? He's got like no lines, which is the kind of thing my mother would say every time I'm in anything. My mom's like, I thought your part would be bigger. Yeah, well, I've been hearing that my entire life, both at home and, it didn't matter anymore. It was about just doing. And it was such a huge lesson to push my ego out of the way.
There was a great line in the piece where you talked about how you rule yourself out of things is not by saying no once, it's by saying no repeatedly. And then you somehow rule yourself, and then people stop calling you. And it's a sort of self-perpetuating circle. Can you talk a little bit about that, especially as an actor having had the trauma of the strike and then the Writers Guild strike? I know you're in both unions. just that long period of not working, and we're close friends, so I know how difficult you and lots of actors found that.
Yeah. We definitely did. And first of all, that it was an actual quote from Shonda's book that was all about the power of one no and what kind of ripple effect it can have as opposed to the power of a yes or continuous yeses, you know? But all of this has to do with controllable variables and uncontrollable variables. The entertainment business is a horrible business. So few of us who are the creatives, the people who make stuff or write things or act in things, perform, create content, have no control over the outcome of what we do, whether we will be hired, whether the thing we get hired to do is going to last more than one, or last more than a season, or get canceled after, two. Those are all things out of our control. And so what happens is we become unbelievably obsessed with this false narrative that we have more control than we do. The only control we have is to say yes or no. To say yes or no to ourselves if we decide we want to sit down and write for 30 minutes and just do it, or the power to say yes to a job that is offered to us that we think is beneath us or too hard or out of town when we don't want to leave town. There's all these variables that we don't control. And after the strike, talk about uncontrollable variables. Like we just felt powerless. We would just walk in circles around the studios. Like, talk about a metaphor. We spoke our truth on the placards that we walked with, but we had no control over what was being negotiated and what the future of our business was going to be. And am I whining? I sound like I'm whining.
No, not at all. Wait a second. Actually, I want to know how you know each other.
I was a fan of Joanna's because I was obsessed with, and am still, Project Runway. And so there was a very, very well viewed season of Project Runway All Stars where Joanna was the mentor, and a lovely one at that. And my husband and I were just like, oh my God, I love her. She's so glamorous and so smart. And then I was lucky enough in the last season that I was in Scandal to be invited as the entire cast of Scandal and all the Washington, D.C. shows, Veep and House of Cards, were invited to the White House Correspondents' Dinner exactly 10 years ago. Joanna was, I guess, editor of a magazine called Cosmo, I think.
You know,
I'm sort of teasing you, but Joanna was sort of was running the world over there.
that little old thing.
That little old Cosmo.
Just whatever. Cosmo.
And invited like a third of the cast, including Jeff Perry and myself. And I was so honored and excited. And the moment I arrived in that lobby in DC and Joanna pulled through those electric doors and walked through, I was like, Mama! I'm so excited. And Joanna, you take it from there. I stalked you.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that because I was watching Scandal obsessively, Sam. I loved it and was very excited to be taking the cast to the White House Correspondents. For those who haven't been, it is literally the world's longest dinner. It's like 4 hours you're stuck at the table because of all the security, because the president's there, et cetera, et cetera. So I thought I have to find someone that I can sit next to for 4 hours who I know is going to be amusing. And literally, I've never done this before, but I became obsessed by Dan's character, partly because he was a journalist. I started reading up about Dan Bucatinsky, who is he, and I thought, I'm going to sit next to him. If anyone can keep me entertained for 4 hours, it's him. We sit down at the dinner and we do not stop talking for 4 hours. We carry on talking until, I think, 3 in the morning. And we basically end up having a wonderful weekend, and then we sort of became new best friends.
Yeah, we did not stop.
That's fair to say.
We started talking that weekend and have not stopped talking for 10 years.
We really haven't stopped talking. He's one of my closest friends. I love his husband, Don. I love his kids. He loves my kids. It's so much fun.
Wait a second. Do you vacation together? Do you do things like, do you go on a boat together?
We sort of do.
We do a lot of staying at each other's apartments. It's so much fun. But you also started something called Failure Fridays, which we also wrote about at The Beast and took off, and all sorts of celebrities in Hollywood started liking it. And this is where you post your failures on Instagram. Now, obviously, you're in a #1 movie on Netflix, so your failures are kind of in inverted commas. But what prompted you to do that?
I had been thinking a lot about how, especially during COVID, but about how much social media is sort of this, what we feel, this emotional doom scrolling, where the successes and triumphs of other people, their bodies, their bread, their cappuccinos, their awards, their dresses, you name it, every single thing that is fabulous gets posted and curated so that our version of reality becomes skewed. And by the way, I fell into that trap as well. I felt like the only things I could post are things that look the best. It's the whole reason why there are filters on our phones to filter the actual truth into something that looks better than the truth. And one of my worst fears is that anybody see me with my shirt off. For the last 20 years, my biggest fear is that anybody, including these eyes, see me with my shirt off. So I've been showering in a turtleneck for the last 2 decades, but I felt like I needed to get over myself. And I started feeling like if we could all start to inspire one another by our setbacks, by the things that don't go so well, by our humiliations and our embarrassments and our failures, at least once a week, at least, let's start inspiring each other on how we can get up off the floor when we have a setback. Because really, the path to success is paved by failure. I mean, every single award someone wins is at the heels of dozens of projects that never saw the light of day or did not win awards. And we only hear about the good. So I really became excited about getting over my own fear of letting people with my hair down, so to speak. And I started talking about my parenting failures, my relationship failures, my work failures, all of them.
I think it is so valuable because I even find, like, having done so much press and having done so much of that stuff out in the world, it is actually very rare to even have the opportunity to talk about, like, kind of like all the hard work and all the hurdles that got you to the place where you ended up. And I think it's a really important part of the conversation because it's absolutely like you're not going to wake up one day and just automatically be at the top of your game. That road is paved with stumbles and failures. So I thank you for that work.
You know, how many times are we on the floor in a fetal position? Like, we've put a year and a half into a project that we care so deeply about, and instead, it's over. And getting the energy back, or the hope, or the incentive to get back on a horse and do it again, which, by the way, is the only way we can keep going. It's what life's all about. It's about. So anyway, I get very passionate about it. It's even the notion of resistance that makes us stronger. Go to the gym. Every single weight that we can't lift is only about continuing to try until eventually we can. So pushing against resistance is the only thing that makes us stronger.
I agree. It's like friction. You have to have friction in
Yes,
your
that's
life
right. That's right.
to achieve those big
They
highs.
just feel bad.
You're dangerously close to sounding like a motivational speaker. So I'm going to break in
Break in.
and say, I want you to tell the story that you told me on the phone one day when you called up and I couldn't really understand initially what you were saying because
Was I crying?
you were crying, you were hyperventilating, and I was like, Dan, it's okay, keep calm and carry. I was just being as British as I possibly could because I was worried you were having a panic attack because you were. I want you to tell Sam and everybody listening what in fact had happened.
Well, what's really scary is that there have been more than one time that I've made a phone call like that to you. So are you talking about the time involving an animal?
Yes, I am. And alcohol, because it's the alcohol part, which I also love here.
All right, I'm going to tell it to you in a nutshell because it's too long of a story. But my son, who at the time was 16, wanted to start modeling. And I'm just so excited that he was sort of off his track of becoming a sniper and playing Call of Duty that I was like, oh my God, as a gay dad, my son wants to be a model. Like,
A wholesome career to be modeling.
please, I could totally help you do that. Although I had to really play it cool because if he could whiff even a drop of Mama Rose in me, he would have dropped it like a hot potato. So I acted really casual and I was like, yeah, sure, we could get you some pictures and whatever you want. I mean, you drive it. I mean, I'm totally cool. I couldn't care less. Like, you could do it or not do it. It's all fine with me. Meanwhile, I was like shopping for outfits and I'm totally into it. So we go to my friend who's a photographer who's going to do sort of a spec shoot with him. We get there and I'm planning on art directing the entire thing. And she sends me into her kitchen. She's like, Joan and I are going to go shoot pictures. It's better if we just create a rapport and you stay in the kitchen. Horrified, I sat in the kitchen. I poured myself a glass of rosé. It was 4 o'clock. The glasses were very small. And I had a glass, maybe two, of this little rosé. And then he had a fabulous time. They had a great photo shoot and we headed home. And he went off to volleyball and I went to take care of, when I got home, I went to take care of this green cheek conure, which is a little kind of parrot that I was taking care of for my daughter who was in Ireland. It was my only job was to take care of this bird. And I took the bird out and I was playing with it. And that's the last thing I remember because I passed out on the couch in the kitchen. And then I woke up and went in to pay some bills. And then I was like, oh, where is Kermit? Where is Kermit? I couldn't find the bird. I went looking everywhere. I could not find that bird. The cage was closed. The bird was gone. I was fit to be tied. I called Don. I called Jonah. Everyone comes home. It's dark now. We're walking with our Apple flashlights all around the house, all outside the house. And then I found feathers on the front yard. And I realized that one of the dogs had gotten Kermit. I fell to the ground, like the Kent State photo, and I burst into tears because of what I would have to tell my daughter about the failure. I couldn't even keep this bird alive. I was horrified, and Don kept saying it's the dog's fault. Stop blaming yourself. It's the dog's fault. My son kept saying, Dad, it's okay. It's human error. It's human error. He just kept making sure I knew it's okay. You have to forgive yourself, but it's definitely human error. I was horrified. And I still haven't let it go. My daughter calls me the bird killer.
Oh my God, Kermit.
Yeah. I mean, how many times have we had to break our kids' hearts? It's going to happen many times, and it has happened many times, but that was one of the worst. And I called Joanna, and she was like, oh my God, Dan, it's a bird. You're going to look back on this. It's going to be a fun. I'm like, why are you laughing? She's like, well, because it's kind of funny. And I was horrified. But Joanna was right. Within a month, I was like writing a piece about it, which really helped me turn my perspective on it into something that could be looked at with some levity.
Everything is copy.
Everything is copy.
That is true.
Yeah, so that became one of my first Failure Fridays.
Before we wrap up, I do need to say this in the body of an interview as I stare into your eyes, that The Comeback was one of my favorite shows. And I mean, that show is a goddamn tour de force.
Well, I'm very proud of it. You're not alone. And I have to say, it's so weird. It's like I've been hearing so many people. I think people have been finding it again somehow and watching it again because
Oh, really?
season 1 was in 2005. Season 2 was in 2014. It's been 10 years since season 2. It's something I'm incredibly proud of. Lisa Kudrow and Michael Patrick King created that series. They wrote it together, but I produced it with them. And it is beloved. And I certainly understand why. I mean, she's so brilliant in it. And it's such a commentary on our business and on ego and on the fishbowl of attention and wanting attention. And it goes back to the grandiosity of it all, which, I certainly shared when not wanting to do Our Little Secret. And it wound up being one of the best experiences I ever had. So I encourage people to say yes to almost everything. Just like HBO said yes to the Comeback idea. They had no idea what we were talking about when we pitched that show. And Carolyn Strauss sat there and said, I don't know what you guys are talking about, but why don't you just do it? And you don't get that kind of comment anymore. I was very lucky.
And those opportunities are so rare to like create something it's like the type of show that's a jewel box.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's like a beautiful, rare, like it's like a little green bird of rare perfection. But it is. It's a beautiful gem.
It's specific and it's just edgy and it's just, there's nothing like it. I'm working now on season 4 of Hacks, and the creators of that show are such huge fans of The Comeback and certainly derived some piece of inspiration, I think, a little bit in terms of driving forward with a female driven, entertainment focused show. And they've done such a fabulous job with that show, if I may say so myself.
Amazing. It's amazing. Yeah, truly amazing.
And also, it's a tribute to the power of just keeping on, keeping on. Because I remember in the depths of COVID, when so many actors I knew thought they were never going to work again. And you and I had many sort of supportive conversations during COVID because we were both feeling sort of, we're both extroverts. We were feeling claustrophobic. But look at you now. You're on the 4th season of Hacks, having been on the 3rd, and they've rolled out a bigger character for you. And your Netflix show with Lindsay Lohan is at #1, or your Netflix movie. So many congratulations. You
Thank
just have
you.
to keep on keeping on.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. I exactly. I know. There's lots of gratitude, believe me.
Well, I adore you, and no one makes a better gluten-free chocolate chip cookie than you do.
Thank
God,
you.
I want to go to your parties. What is going on? I need to come on this camping retreat with
You're
both of
totally invited. You're totally invited. You would love it.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
By the way, hiking with Dan around Beverly Hills is the best experience because he knows where everybody lives. The air is rich with rose scent, fresh rose. Or it's like, it's, whatever the flavor of the tree is, he knows it. It's the best.
So important. I'm actually off to Kerry Washington's star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame ceremony. I mean, it's about time, right?
That's cool.
It is about time. I mean, maybe she doesn't have one, but you two will have your star down.
No, I either will or I won't. How about that? But I'll be wearing clothes. I will not have my shirt off, I guarantee you, at any point, before, during, or after. Nice to meet you. Thank you for having me, guys.
How much fun is Dan?
So fun. You are friends with everyone. I'm not joking. I do think that this podcast should be subtitled, "How do you two know each other again?" And that's just my first question every time.
Well, I'm very fond of Dan because he really was someone I'd watched on telly and I thought I want to be friends with that actor because I somehow conflated the character and the actor, but he just turned out to be the best. He's one of the best people.
I like it when people become friends as adults and you kind of turn to someone after a dinner and go, should we be friends? Should we email and call each other and hang out a bit? It's kind of cool. I don't know. I love it.
It is cool. And also, one of the things I find really interesting is that friendship, it's so important, and yet it's really not discussed. People are obsessed about romance. There are all these sort of dating apps, but actually one of the hardest and most important things is friendship.
Yes.
It's so important to stay social. It's one of the things that prevents Alzheimer's. Actually, if you're an older person, meeting a younger person is one of the most important things you can do for your brain.
Yes.
It's challenging. It's super important to keep you mentally alert.
And then when they don't suspect it, you steal their soul and you become younger yourself and you take
I
their
wish
skin.
that was true. Yeah. You take their skin. Yeah, that's very true. That's very true.
That's my holiday thought.
Well, you're my new midlife friend. I think I can say midlife because you're younger. So I'm taking some of your years.
Let's do it.
That was weird, wasn't it? Because British people shouldn't say things like that. Did I just display some vulnerability there? I hope not. Embarrassing. So don't need any friends.
My cat is so happy. I need nothing. I don't need anything.
I am an island.
Just a jar of mincemeat.
That's not your cat, Susan Collins, though.
Oh, that's Jerry.
That's Jerry.
Yeah.
Jerry Nadler?
Yeah, Jerry, my cat, Jerry Nadler. Somehow Susan Collins is a funny name for a cat, and Jerry Nadler is the worst name for a cat.
I think I need to get a cat and call it Kash Patel. I think that would be a good name for a cat.